Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 2 of season 6 of Arrow Tribute. And all in all, I thought this was a pretty solid episode. Everybody's got something interesting going on, and there's some new developments that are also pretty cool. And I mean, all in all, it's a really solid episode. So let's just kind of get right into it. Let's see here. So nothing really that huge to say about Quentin and Renee. I just do continue to like the chemistry between them as characters, and I also like how Renee is continuing to show that despite coming from the background where you would really not expect it, he's actually pretty good at this whole working for City Hall thing. And that scene with him and Quentin and the FBI lady, that was also really nicely done. This show definitely did need another moment of comedy besides what was going on with Felicity and Curtis to kind of keep things from being too heavy. Speaking of Felicity and Curtis, the idea of them going into business together, that's pretty cool. It kind of gives them something that's really their own thing. They're two people who are cut from very similar cloth, so it makes sense that they would want to kind of work together more. I mean, they already do that a great deal, and they really work well together, so turning that into something that can put cash in both their pockets, well, okay, that makes sense. And if I remember correctly, the Mr. Terrific from the comics is also, a bit of a businessman. He's mainly kind of a tech person, an inventor, but he's also a businessman, if I'm remembering correctly. Let's see here. I really liked what was going on between Diana and John this episode. And I also like the time that they really did not waste any time on this whole confrontation with him with what's going on with Dig here. I was also surprisingly pleased that it turned out this whole situation with Dig in his hand, that it wasn't just PTSD. I mean, Dig's a military veteran. We've seen that he's experienced PTSD in the past, and he has been through some stuff with Oliver. So, while it's understandable that the events of Lian would be very traumatic for him, it would have seemed a bit odd if this was the thing that really did some psychological damage to him. Now, granted, what's that line from Game of Thrones? A man who's fought in 100 battles might finally break in his 101st. Well, okay, George R.R. Martin was pretty well right on the ball on that one. But still, this actually having some sort of a physiological explanation, I think works a lot better. And I do like how, Dig was kind of going like, hey, I've got a problem, yeah, I know it, but this is my thing. And Diana was very quick to point out, like, hey, if I'm out there and I'm depending on you to watch my back and help keep me alive, then this has suddenly become my business. I can't not say something about this if this is a problem, which is perfectly reasonable. And I am kind of glad that Dig didn't really try and drag this out. Of course, this all falls apart as soon as Oliver says the whole, like, you know what, man, I need you to take over being Green Arrow, because as dumb as it is, how can Dig say no to this? Oliver is basically his brother in all but biology, and him saying this is basically a gigantic, I trust you more than any other person on the planet. I trust you with this thing that is, apart from my son, the most valuable thing in the world to me. How can Dig say no? I mean, of course, logically, it's like, look, Oliver, I'd love to, but, well, logical decisions and good dramatic television are not exactly the greatest of bedmates. Dig making the choice with his heart and knowing that this is all going to end very badly. Well, yeah, we all know that's coming, and yet that's what helps make for the better story. People aren't made out of stone. We're not Vulcans. We're not robots. We make stupid but understandable decisions all the time. It's part of what makes us people. Let's see, what else, what else, what else? Oh yeah, so Oliver and the FBI lady. Now I do like this, and I do also like how this FBI lady is nobody's fool. I really do like her character. I don't think she's anybody from the comics, which is a little bit of a shame because there are a number of FBI agents from the DC comics. They probably could have dug up and put in this role, but details, details. Although I admit, I really would like to see Nick Novak. Uh, Come up. Nick Novak is a very interesting character. Real short, long story short, he's a FBI agent, who's also undercover as a mobster, and he's also has a superhero name, which interestingly enough is Argus. But this is a character who really hasn't been seen much since the '90s, and we have Argus now as an organization. So while I have a fondness for this character, I guess I'm just going to have to resign myself that I'm probably never going to see him again. But nonetheless, she's very sharp, um, and I do like how she even points out, like, Oliver, I'm not exactly your biggest fan, but even I think you should get a lawyer. Um, her pointing out, yeah, do you really think that, I can't see what you're doing here? And like, oh, he just happens to have a family emergency at the same time as the Green Arrow is off doing something. And all this other stuff showed that this lady is a really, really seriously savvy operator. Um, I also like that situation where Oliver says, like, you know what, I'm an open book, but you have to stay away from my son. And, do you not think that I will do anything I can to protect my son? Really drawing a line in the sand there, which is, really great for Oliver as a character, and sort of puts it out there that there is going to be no shortage of confrontation between these two characters. And what's interesting is that, like it or not, she actually would have the legal right to talk to William. The exact rules for law enforcement agents talking to minors varies from state to state, but the general gist is yes, the law enforcement authorities do have the right to speak with minors without their parents present, without their parents' consent. Now the minors can say, hey, I want my parent or my guardian or whatever here, and they can ask for attorneys and things like that. But like it or not, she does legally have the right to speak to William without Oliver present. Granted, that's real world law versus, law in the Arrowverse, which on more than one occasion we have seen is often skipped over in favor of whatever is the most dramatic situation. The old TV tropes, Hollywood law trope. But nonetheless, it is going to be very interesting to see what all comes of this. Now, speaking of William, I really did like him kind of getting on Oliver's case here with, Oliver's promise, like, I will always come home, which William rightfully immediately calls BS on. And very quickly, Oliver is forced to admit, it's like, yeah, he's right. It is entirely possible that one of these days I'm going to go out there and I'm not going to come back. So, points to William for not not giving in to heartfelt but obvious platitudes. I mean, he's a kid who has been through some bad stuff and, has a cynical but understandable view of the world. I mean, granted, he's only, less than a year from his mother being murdered by a maniac and watching said maniac blow his head off right in front of him. So I do like that. And I do like that he is cautiously starting to bond with Oliver, which again speaks well of Oliver, that he is in no way, shape, or form putting William second. Green Arrow gets put second. And man, that is what I really do respect. I mean, I have seen so much bad parenting in superhero comics. It's amazing. Um, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. Let's just kind of leave that. So, talking a little bit more about what's going on with Oliver. One, we literally get the Bruce Wayne name drop. You know, the only real firm reference out before that we got to Batman being out there was that sort of Wayne Tech mention on the newspaper on the Flash. And yes, Rip did toss around the word Dark Knight. You know, it's been mentioned that someone out there in the DC in the Arrowverse uses the name Oracle. We more or less got a Harley Quinn cameo in a way, but here it's just sort of like, yep, Bruce Wayne is the real deal. Now, in the past, it was just because of basically the powers that be feeling twitchy about having Batman spread around too thin. And I remember a lot of people when Arrow first started up were like, is Arrow set in the Nolan verse? And of course, the answer was no, you stupid. Well, we're just not going to finish that sentence. Although I do remember one guy on the internet going like, oh, well, yeah, of course Arrow is set in the Nolanverse, which of course it is not. But, you know, why be mad about stupid things people said on the internet 6 years ago, right? But now the waters have changed, and here apparently just full on referencing Bruce Wayne and Gotham City is now okay, and frankly, I think the Arrowverse is better for it. Sure, we'll almost certainly never actually get Batman or any of the name and established characters on Arrow, but the fact that these sort of characters and some of the ideas can at least be referenced, you know, I think that does sort of work out better. And so, with that kind of said, and the fact that we do have a canon Superman over on Supergirl, well, sure, he's off on another Earth, but, well, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a counterpart of him on Oliver's Earth? I don't think they'll ever do that, but it certainly is interesting to think about. Because do remember, they have established that Central City does exist on Supergirl's Earth. But, you know, again, details, details. Let's see. Oh yeah, so we got our big situation with Anatoly this episode, and he comes back and says like, yeah, basically the Bratva back in Russia think I'm weak, and well, given how poorly things went for Anatoly the last time he came to Star City, yeah, it's no wonder that there are some people back in Russia who do not hold him in the highest regard. This episode does really nicely drive home that there's no chance that that Oliver and Anatoly are going to be able to mend fences. I mean, Anatoly flat out murders a dude right in front of Oliver, who Oliver then proceeds to simply let Anatoly walk away from. And then I love that bit where Anatoly is like, yeah, I'm still an honorable man. I'm a good man. Well, okay, maybe not good, but honorable. Oliver is like, are you effing kidding me? And then Anatoly's like, well, I didn't put a bomb in your kid's school. I didn't kidnap and torture your son. You know, and of course Oliver is sort of rightly like, okay, so you want points for not murdering and torturing children, which just really goes to show you just how completely into darkness Anatoly has fallen. You know, there was at one point something of a good man in there. I mean, at times ruthless man, at times a man of violence, but a man who did have redeeming features. And now it is abundantly clear that while he does have some self-imposed limits as to what he will not do, having said limits is in no way, shape, or form anything to be applauded. I mean, again, going back to TV tropes, he wants points for basic human decency. You know, he wants to sort of be able to think like, well, I didn't murder a bunch of kids or torture a child, so yeah, I'm still a good, honorable man. I don't think Anatoly's getting out of this season alive. I don't think Oliver will really want to do anything like drastic, just like, you know, put an arrow in his eye, but I have a feeling that one way or another Anatoly will be answering for his choices before the end of the season. And we should take a moment to note that Oliver could have just like put an arrow in his eye, and that would have been the end of it. But ever since I guess it was the end of season one, Oliver has taken the idea of killing somebody again very seriously. Not that he won't do it, but he will only do it if he feels there is absolutely no other choice. Like when he killed the Count, who had Felicity hostage, and when he killed Damien Dark. Again, situations where basically he had absolutely no other choice. With Anatoly, yeah, he did have a choice. Granted, it's kill this guy or let a murderer walk away, but still, the guy was already dead. There was no one in immediate danger. With the Count and with Damien Dark, that wasn't the case. Those two guys, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, had to go. And, well, it's pretty hard to argue that the world isn't better off with the Count gone, and the world is definitely better off with Damien Dark gone. I mean, anybody that can scare John Constantine is a guy the world does not need around. Anyway, guys, I think that kind of covers everything I had to say about this episode. So thanks for joining me. Please remember, of course, that you can join me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi, and please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.